Welcome back to the Harsh Language Podcast, where we go ham, Marvin.
Ham, baby.
As the kids used to say, on the culture that fucking pops. And it popped hard this weekend, Marvin. Are you familiar?
I've seen some of the stuff.
Oof, baby.
Well, I've seen like the one main thing. I was proud of.
This is episode 98, and it's Make Marvin Watch Day, the most special time of month.
Beautiful day.
We're making Marvin watch Contact today. One of my favorite movies. I picked it, so I would hope it's my favorite. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. We got a lot to cover, so I think we should just jump right in, Marvin. What do you think?
Yeah.
What the hell are we supposed to use, man? Harsh language?
First off, how was your week since we last spoke?
Oh, it was good.
Good?
I watched a good amount of stuff, actually. Well, I finished Dark Matter.
Oh, yeah. How's that?
It was pretty good. So it's only got like a 7.7 on IMDb, which is still pretty good.
Yeah.
But I was thinking it was a bit low because I was really feeling the show until I got to a certain part of the show, and then I was like, okay, I understood why it was not rated as high as I thought it should be.
Is this a
I
mini
won't spoil it
series?
in case you watch it, but yeah. No, it's like a...
It's going to have like running seasons?
Oh, no. It's just one. I'm pretty sure this is like a one and done.
Okay, so that would be, I think, considered a mini series, but it's hard to tell.
Okay.
Apple does a lot of mini series, so it makes sense.
Okay.
Which, speaking of Apple, they just announced, I don't know if we talked about it last week, but they broke my heart where they said they're going to be scaling back their production.
Yeah.
Which sucks because they make the best shit as
They
far as
do.
I've seen. Like, they make consistently good stuff, better than any other of the streamers. They just don't market it. So, like, they have a lot of great shit, but nobody knows about it. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, we talk about that a lot.
I guess maybe they found their rhythm now, and they kind of know
Maybe,
what
yeah.
they want to go for. I mean,
I don't think you need to
they
have,
got,
like,
you don't
you
need to
know.
have all that stuff. Yeah.
Look
I mean,
at
they got
HBO.
Severance. They finished this Dark Matter.
Mm-hmm.
There's other stuff I can't think of right now, but
A lot
they
of
don't have
stuff.
to make so much. They got Silo, which was good,
Yeah,
and that's probably gonna have another season.
it is. I
think they found
just
their
saw an
rhythm.
announcement of it. Yeah.
I think they found their rhythm for sure.
Well, you think of HBO back in the day, like when HBO was like king, kind of like you weren't always getting like new shows from them. They came around like maybe once or twice a year you'd get a new show, and sometimes they
Right.
went long, like, you know, Sopranos and The Wire and stuff. But like, I don't feel like you need to do that to be successful. I don't know.
No,
Kind of coincides with some of the stuff I wanted to talk about today, but we'll get to it. What else have you watched?
I started watching that Twisted Metal show, and it's like cheesy, but it's a pretty fun watch. It's like
Right.
30-minute episodes. I think it's pretty fun though.
Good show.
Nothing crazy, but good
Okay.
enough. Yeah.
Anything else?
I think that's it. I actually watched this. There's this video essayist guy I watch on YouTube.
Yeah.
Called, his name is or his channel is FD Signifier.
Okay.
He's pretty good. He just did this piece on the whole Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef, but not just like the recent beef, but like from the inception of their careers and like all the. It was pretty good. It was a good watch.
Nice.
He's a good.
Didn't you say
one
you
of my
watched something that was
something.
perhaps not of the best quality, visual quality?
No.
Perhaps filmed on a camcorder.
Oh, that came out recently?
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
I thought you did. Didn't you say you watched something? No, you did. You 100% did. You.
Oh, you talking about from the last episode? I talked about it then.
Did you?
Yeah, we talked about it a
Oh.
little bit.
Oh, I thought you said it like, you know, behind the
Bad
scenes.
Boys.
Oh, yeah. I don't think we talked about it last episode. I think you just told us behind the scenes that you watched it.
Oh, maybe we didn't. But
Was
yeah.
it good, though? I don't remember.
Yeah, it was funny.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was funny. Much better than the third one.
Better or worse than Beverly Hills Cop?
For me, it was about equal.
Okay, because when we watched Beverly Hills Cop, you were
Probably
like
a little better.
Interesting. Okay, because when we watched Beverly Hills Cop, you were like, "Hey, I wonder why this didn't just come out in theaters. Like, why'd they do it to Netflix?" But and that movie was the one that it would have been competing with had it come out.
Yeah,
at that time.
It should. Yeah, I still think it should have went to theaters based on.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Beverly or based on Bad Boys.
I'm cooking with shows. I've been finishing a lot of stuff. I haven't finished anything new since we last spoke. I'm still watching Fallout. I'm almost done with that. That show's great.
It's so good.
It's very good. I started watching The Gentleman, which is the Guy Ritchie show. Now, I don't know if I can convince you to watch it since your first introduction to Guy Ritchie didn't go so well with Ungentlemanly Warfare, but this show's very good. I'd say it's more in line with like a Guy Ritchie thing, better than the movie. It's like funny. It's got dry humor. It's actually very funny at times, so I'm enjoying it. But it's about a dude who he comes from like this really prestigious family. I guess his dad's like a duke or some shit. And his dad dies and leaves him all his assets. And turns out that on his property, this massive piece of land and this, mansion that goes back into the family, hundreds and hundreds of years, has a secret underground weed farm on it. And the dad was like leasing his land out to this like huge drug corporation.
Oh shit. Okay.
So that's just kind of like the central plot, but it makes for some very funny stuff so far.
Yeah.
So I've been enjoying that. I started watching My Adventures with Superman, which I kept hearing nothing but good things about. It's an animation. You actually might like it, if I'm being honest. I know you don't have like a deep love for Superman like I do, which doesn't matter, but you like anime.
Yes.
And this is, I don't know if you've seen the trailer or footage of this, but it is an anime. Like,
oh yeah, okay.
They took it's very anime inspired in terms of especially the animation, but like just most of the animation. But it's like a fresh new Superman story. It's like for a younger generation, like modern generation. It's kind of like Zoomer, like later millennial kind of focused. And I've watched the first couple episodes. It's pretty good so far.
What is it, like 25 minutes or so?
Yeah.
30 minutes? Yeah. I'll check it out.
Easy watch if you like animation. And it's basically, he's a younger Superman, and it's about him like just sort of like growing into his powers and like, just stuff like that. It's cool. Yeah. Like any opportunity to see Superman just do Superman stuff is amazing. And so I don't understand why it's so difficult for certain people to just be like, people just want to, like, in the first episode, he rescues a cat out of a tree, and it's like a very Superman trope, but it's one that like a certain fan base likes to make fun of, but they don't understand the meaning behind it is that, yes, for this fucking godlike being from another planet who could literally crack the earth with a sneeze, there's no job too small. That's like, I don't know. I just don't understand. It's fucking, and it's cool. So I don't know. I've been really enjoying that.
Nice. Yeah, I'll check it out. It sounds good.
Yeah. But the biggest thing I watched this weekend was I went to go see Deadpool and Wolverine with a couple friends in theaters.
I heard it was pretty good.
It was very good, actually. I want to talk about it a little bit. I'm sure you haven't seen it. I'm not going to spoil it, and I'm not going to spoil it. I don't think if we all did actually watch it for the purposes of the show, I think I would prefer to do a spoiler-free review for this one because it has a lot of like cool moments in it that I think should be fresh. So I'm not going to spoil anything, but I do want to talk about it a little bit. Sure. Because it's interesting, and it coincided with a piece of fucking huge, massive news that broke at Comic-Con. So Deadpool and Wolverine, it's the third, Marvin, of the trilogy. Have you seen the other two?
I haven't.
Really?
I don't have much interest or care about Deadpool, honestly. Doesn't really matter to me. Okay. So
well, may I suggest you watch them because I think he's the perfect character for somebody like you. In that he doesn't require comic book knowledge to like appreciate a lot of stuff, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
But he's an interesting character in that in the comic books, he breaks the fourth wall a lot, sort of like She-Hulk does, but he does it like to the extreme.
Right.
And it made for some very funny material in the films. Obviously, you got Ryan Reynolds, who is sarcasm personified and like very witty and has great comedy delivery. And that plus Deadpool is gold. And the first two movies were great. And they're brutal and gory and just fun action and like fun little fourth wall breaks and references and stuff. Very funny stuff. Well, everybody was waiting now that the Fox merger happened with Disney. Like, what are we going to, like, how's Deadpool going to join the MCU? Is he going to join the MCU? It's rated R and it's brutal. Like, will Disney allow that? Yeah, and they did.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah, no, the movie was everything I would have hoped it would have been. Like, it makes me feel great and confident for like a Blade movie if it ever comes out, because that needs to be rated R. And you had posted that they announced it's rated R, right?
Yeah.
It also, they just announced it's delayed, but big surprise. It makes me hopeful for a Punisher movie or show. We know that we're getting a show and he's going to be in Daredevil. It makes me hopeful that Disney is not afraid to explore the more violent and gruesome aspects of Marvel comics. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it also brings back Wolverine, as you know, our boy Hugh Jackman, who has been playing Logan for like 24 years now or something crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Dusty and I always talk about like Robert Downey Jr. is like the perfect Iron Man. Well, Chris Evans is like the perfect Cap. All this stuff. Like, there's no better person that, like, he was born to play Wolverine. It is what it is.
Did he even have roles before Wolverine or?
Yeah, he was in like a lot of like he was in the movie version of Phantom of the Opera. I can't remember. I gotta look at his IMDb. I can't remember like how deep into his career he was by the time he got his first Wolverine role. I don't think it was that deep. Yeah, so the first X-Men came out in 2000. And he had only been in like... Yeah, he'd only been in a couple things. In fact,
Oklahoma.
I'm surprised that it's upsetting Dusty's not here to talk about it, but he was in a TV series that was a spin-off of Snowy River, which is that fucking Australian Outback movie that Dusty made us watch. Yeah. And he is Australian, obviously, so it makes sense that he would be in that. But yeah, so Logan is one of his first roles, and like he's been the character for this long, and he's been great at it, and like, you know, Logan marked the end of that character. It marked the end of the X-Men from that universe, and it was great. It's one of the best comic book movies to date. But I do want to say, I think that this movie, Deadpool and Wolverine, is the best comic book movie we've ever got. But I need to specify. Allow me to explain. When I say comic book movie, I don't mean movie inspired by comic books or comic book characters. I mean straight up comic book movie, like cartoonish, unapologetically comic booky. Okay? Christopher Nolan fucked up everybody's heads with Dark Knight trilogy. I'm going to tell you right now. Those movies are great. But ever since those came out, everybody's like, we got to fucking do realism. What if fucking Batman was real? What if Superman was real? What if the fucking X-Men were real? What if the event? They're not real. That's the whole fun of them, is that they're not real. Okay? There's a place for those things, and it works with certain characters, Batman being one of them. But it doesn't work for others, like Superman, Zach. So this movie is just like it to me, perhaps marks this progression of post Dark Knight trilogy comic book movies that focus on realism and what if this character existed in the real world, to maybe just like not doing that and being like, hey, this is based off of ridiculous characters that wear ridiculous costumes.
Right.
You know? And that's why I think it's cool to see Wolverine in his fucking famous yellow and blue suit from the comic book. It looks ridiculous on a real human being in the movie, but you don't care because it's cool and you know where it comes from, and it's not trying to be something else. And I gotta say, you know, for as good as the Dark Knight trilogy is, there's times where he looks fucking ridiculous in that suit because it's so dead serious. Especially in Dark Knight Rises, when him and Catwoman are fighting back to back. It's a little ridiculous. Just based on how like dead serious those movies are.
Right.
So I don't know. I think this might be one of the best comic book movies to date in that regard. And it had, you know, a lot of cameos. It did everything I expected it to do. It had a lot of cameos, some that I expected, some that I didn't, a couple that like blew me away, which were like really fun. And I'm not going to mention them because it would just ruin it. The only thing I think this movie was weak on was like the story, and the plot kind of just felt like a afterthought.
Yeah.
There's some like very loose multiverse stuff that they talk about that it's, you know, because the movie's about like him coming to the MCU, and they do it in the meta fourth wall breaking way that you were used to with him. And it's like he's coming to the MCU, right? But like everything about that and like the mechanics of it is just complete nonsense. And if you think about it for longer than 2 seconds, it doesn't make any sense. But it didn't really ruin the movie for me. I had a lot of fun with it. And I'm happy that it was really good. But it also that was on Friday. But then Sunday came.
Right.
And it kind of changed things a little bit. The movie's very good. It's fun. Again, it does everything you want to do. You get to see fucking two guys who have regenerative abilities stab each other fucking hundreds of thousands of times. So that's very fun. And it has an 8.2 on IMDb. I would give it like a solid 8.5. But then Sunday came, Marvin. Dusty's not here, as everybody I'm sure noticed. We don't have a lot of news, so we'll just cover this one bit of news because it's the biggest piece of news I think ever in the history of mankind, pop culture.
Right.
And that is that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to the MCU, not as Iron Man, but as Doctor Doom. Let's unpack this, Marvin.
Yeah.
Now, I know you have no basis for giving a shit, but I want to know your thoughts.
Well, you gave me like a theory or something alluding to him basically being a variant, which I thought that was cool.
Could be. It could be.
But I do understand the people's complaints about the cheapness of it all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I understand it. I don't feel the same way. I don't know. It's not that big of a deal to me.
I think the MCU might be dead. Personally. What were you going to say? Finish your thought.
No, that's pretty much it. So because of that, you think it's dead?
Yes.
That's the nail in the coffin.
I think so. Listen, the multiverse fucking sucks. I've always hated it from being a comic book reader. The only multiverse thing I've ever read that I think was brilliantly done is Stephen King's Dark Tower series. But it's Stephen King.
This is actually funny because I just watched Dark Matter.
Oh.
And Dark Matter is it has a lot of multiverse stuff in it. I won't say too much in case you want to watch it because it's
I'll
really
watch
good.
it. Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil it, but that did multiverses very well, I would say.
In comic books, though, it's used to often reboot a thing or bring people back. Like, nobody dies in comic books. There's no stakes or anything like that. And I think one of the things that has made the MCU so great is that it was adapting comic book stories for sure, but it was adapting them. It wasn't recreating them for the screen. There's a difference. An adaptation can take liberties with the stories. It's why I always argue with Dusty and Ed, shout out to Ed, that I get you're a comic book purist and you want to see the stories that you love on the screen, but this is not that. These are adaptations. These are inspired by the stories from the comic books, not direct one-to-one adaptations. Yep. So I'm a little bit more open to certain changes and things like that. And it's fine. Right. Everybody has their own, likes and dislikes. But in the comic books, the multiverse is often used to like reboot and bring people back to life and this and that and the other thing. But I think what was always strong about the MCU is that like there were stakes, and that was solidified with Endgame. Tony dies, Cap gets old, goes off into the sunset. Whatever. Every major character got their like definitive ending for the most part. And that was great. But here we are now in the multiverse saga with characters that are not beloved characters. They're certainly weaker, lesser known actors, a tailspin in writing quality, a downgrade in CGI quality, and like it seems like every Marvel release we're all here talking about like the same thing, like, oh my god, like what's going on? And there's only been a few of them that were notably very good after Endgame, like Spider-Man No Way Home, which honestly, well, I'll talk about that in a minute. Spider-Man No Way Home, No Way Home, Guardians 3, Deadpool and Wolverine, like there's some good ones in there. Shang-Chi, not saying they're all fucking stinkers, but a lot of them aren't great. But the way I feel about the multiverse is the way I feel about Star Wars, which I talk about often. I think the multiverse stories need to stand on their own, unencumbered by the greater MCU. Where I say, like, I want Star Wars stories about, like, other people in the galaxy that has nothing to do with the Skywalker saga.
Yeah.
But they haven't been doing that. Why? Like, the Fantastic Four, they gave some information this week at Comic-Con that it's a alternate universe, 1960s. So it's a it's a retro futuristic version of the 1960s on a different Earth. And it's an independent story. Now, yes, I understand that they're probably going to come to our universe and be part of the MCU, and I get all that, and that's fine. But hopefully the story they tell is very, very, very isolated and independent of that greater thing. Because that was what Marvel was good the whole time. We knew it was connected to like the coming of Thanos, but each story operated on its own and then intertwined. Okay. But they haven't been doing that. Every story they've told is like part of the bigger thing, Yeah. And the bigger thing was not that good. So anyhow, we got the big announcement. Robert Downey Jr. is coming back. He's playing Doctor Doom. They didn't say whether he's playing Victor Von Doom, just that he's playing Doctor Doom. They're bringing back the Russo brothers to direct it. They retitled the movie that was supposed to be Kang Dynasty to Doomsday. And they brought back Stephen McFeely, who's one of the co-writers of Endgame and Winter Soldier and Civil War. Basically all the best Marvel stuff.
The bangers, yeah.
Yeah, the bangers.
Okay,
good. Yeah, face value, good, yeah. You would think this is good, right? It should be good. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Marvel sees that it hasn't been working. They're going back to what worked.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why Robert Downey Jr. has to be part of this.
Yeah.
I mean, I know why. Because he's Robert Downey Jr. And it's like, this just... It just stinks of, like, upper management. Like...
Just throw him in.
How could we get this? How could we get the audiences back into theaters? Can we just pay Robert Downey Jr. to come back? It's like, well, we don't want to cheapen his sacrifice in Endgame. It's like, all right, make him somebody else. Like, fucking make him Doctor Doom. Obviously it also coincides with the fact that their guy, the one that they were building this next phase around, decided to smack his fucking girlfriend around and got arrested. Like, that's not great. And they couldn't have predicted that. So clearly they had to course correct, which they could have just recast him. They could have just recast Kang and continued.
Yep.
However, I did read that apparently rumors are starting to circulate that they were planning on firing Jonathan Majors before they knew about the abuse because those movies were doing so bad.
Damn.
So, those movies, because Quantum Mania did so bad. I don't know how true that is, but so I could only operate on the assumption that it's based off of his abuse allegations or whatever. Was he charged with that? I don't even know what's going on with that.
I don't know the specifics, so I won't comment. I don't know.
Yeah. So here we are. What do you think, Marvin? What do you think about this? You don't mind?
Um,
I think you're the perfect candidate for something like this, to be honest. And that's not, I don't mean that as an offense.
no. Yeah, no. So was Iron Man like a variant?
There is a comic
Doctor
book.
Doom in the comic or something?
There is a comic
so
book
it's based on
storyline.
something there.
It's not a variant
I
per
get that.
se. There is a storyline where Victor Von Doom takes over Tony Stark's mind. He like swaps bodies and minds.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
like what there is precedence for this.
Face off.
Yeah. But this only works in my mind. I think the only way it remotely works is if it's a variant of Tony Stark.
Yeah.
And I actually think it could be an interesting story if it's done correctly, because Tony Stark in the MCU is the guy that wanted to save the universe, and he did. His character arc is going from like weapons dealer who doesn't give a fuck about anything to the ultimate hero who made the ultimate sacrifice to save everybody.
Yeah.
Wow. How fucking cool is it if now the audience has to grapple with Tony Stark who wants to
Evil.
fucking do the opposite?
Yeah.
I think that could be a sick story, to be perfectly honest. I do. And
I did too. That's why when you said that, I was like, oh my God.
and I think that would be within the theme of the multiverse. That's literally what the multiverse is all about, right? It's about how one tiny event or action can completely change the course of history for a particular timeline or character. And Doctor Doom in the comic books does share a lot of ideals with Tony. So it could be interesting if this Tony just took a slightly different course than our Tony, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of moments within the MCU where you could easily see Tony kind of veering off course in a different direction. He's talking about all this shit. Oh, I want to build a suit or armor around the world. He fucking creates Ultron, for Christ's sakes, and that went off the rails. Like, there's just a lot of moments where you could easily see him do something extreme to where he goes down like a more darker path, let's just say.
Yeah.
But his
Civil War, kind of.
Yeah,
Like-
that's another point. Yep, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
But in the comic books, Doom doesn't think of himself as a villain, which is very interesting. He legit thinks things that he does are the best interest of the world, as Tony
Thanos.
does. Yeah, Thanos as well.
So
Go ahead.
I think I do like the idea of the story, and I think it could play out well, like you said. The problem comes with it being like, if this is gonna be the main villain, then that is where it becomes the issue.
Yeah.
I think.
I think it would require great writing, personally, to really pull this off, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we don't have a lot
Great
of
writing.
we don't have a lot of evidence recently to support that, right?
Yeah.
But Doctor Doom has a pretty tragic origin. He grew up a Romani traveler. We are not allowed to say. I think it's like derogatory to say what was
Yes, I
popular
know
for a
what
very
you're
long
saying.
time, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And his mom sold her soul to the devil, and he grows up and
Oh,
realizes
shit.
he's way smarter and tries to use that he tries to use that to save her. Along the way, he grows like crippling narcissism. He wears the armor because he thinks of himself as so perfect that like he can't even touch the world, like interact. Like
Wow.
he's like a really deranged guy. He never takes his mask off because he has a scar. Later on in the comics, I believe he becomes like very disfigured, so he doesn't take his mask off. But like the sheer he is so like the sheer thought of like the slightest imperfection, like fucking he can't deal with it. So like he doesn't take the mask off. So it's like you're not fucking cutting a check for Robert Downey Jr. to not take his fucking mask off. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
he's showing that face. So like this is probably going to deviate quite a bit from Doom. And like you said, I don't think it's going to be Victor Von Doom. I think it's going to be Tony Stark as Doctor Doom. It's going to lead us into the Secret Wars, which is then going to reboot everything. When I say reboot everything, I don't mean like, hey, Cap's back and Iron Man's back. I just mean like, hey, every character that we have the rights to is in the single universe now. We're starting fresh.
New big villain. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only way I could see this being successful. And if you're gonna bring Doom back, it's not gonna be Tony. It's not gonna be Robert Downey Jr. And thus is my problem with it, because again, creatively it could work, but I don't think that's the case here. I don't think it's a creative decision at all. I think it's obvious that it's like the complete opposite of a creative decision to bring him back.
Yeah.
I don't think they were sitting there and being like, man, that would be such
one
a
story.
Yeah, that'd be such a sick companion to the Infinity War if the guy who started it all and saved the universe is back as like a villain and the fans have to like grapple with that. There's no way that that's what went on.
Nah.
It's an upper management snap decision to get the fans back into theaters as easy as possible. And that's the concerning part for me. This was some suits in a fucking board meeting just trying to figure out how to restore fan interest and replace the guy, like I said, that they bet all their chips on with Jonathan Majors.
Yeah.
And this is an easy 2 birds with 1 stone fix. It's like, we need a new villain and we need like a fucking big hype machine.
Yeah,
oh, yeah, Robert
right.
Downey Jr. Cut him a check. So what worries me about this is because this means, if that's the case, which again, it likely is, we both agree. I'm sure everybody watching this video is going to agree. But the concerning part with that is that would mean these executives either don't understand, well, the executives don't know anything, but it would mean that like most of the people in charge don't understand why their recent output has underperformed and disappointed audiences, or they just don't care. Both of which are equally as scary, I think.
Yeah.
So here I am asking, is the MCU dead? It might be. It just might be.
If they don't play it right, it could definitely be the beginnings.
And here's an interesting thing I found on Twitter today. So, from Avengers Endgame, there has been a steady decline in opening weekends. So Avengers Endgame opened to 1.2 billion. Okay. Unfair to compare to it because it was the culmination of 10 years and all this stuff. Infinity War, prior to that, opened to 640 million. But everything after Endgame, No Way Home, 600 million. Captain Marvel, 456 million. Multiverse of Madness, 450 million. Deadpool and Wolverine now, 438 million. I'm sure a lot of the other movies open to less. There's just been this steady decline in opening weekend profits, which also shows what? A steady decline in fan interest.
Yes.
So that's why I'm saying this is definitely this is like them fucking activating the Winter Soldier. Like we need a last minute, like, you know, all hands on deck, like fucking Code Red, DEFCON fucking 5, whatever the worst one is, DEFCON 1, I don't know. Like we need to pull out all the big stops.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm pretty like I don't know. I'm like I love Robert Downey Jr. And I know he's gonna kill the role, but I just think it's a cheap fucking tactic, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe they're just chasing something that they won't ever be able to get back based on. We know that there's a lot of fans and a lot of people out there that has some kind of thing for Disney, right? The anti-woke people.
Oh, yeah.
The culture has shifted quite a bit since Endgame, even to where there's like a hate boner for Disney. And some of it is some of it's
founded.
Warranted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I get it, but I think it's like is like maybe swaying people, and it's just I don't know how it's tough. I'm sure they got people thinking about it. Maybe this is just like a test. Like I don't know. I really don't know. Like
there's been some really funny memes though.
Yeah.
Somebody said, I can't wait to see the X-Men, and it was like all the original Avengers actors, but playing X-Men coming back.
Oh my God.
There's like Chris Evans as Magneto and Scarlett Johansson as Storm and like all this shit.
Bro.
I jumped on the meme bandwagon. I posted from our Twitter account a picture of Robert Downey Jr. in blackface from Tropic Thunder State.
Yeah.
First look as it was T'Challa. It was good, right? That was kind of a banger.
That was a good one.
I was worried it was going to be like kind of racist, but like he did the fucking role.
No.
So, I mean, what it is, what it
Yeah,
is.
that's not racist. No.
I thought that was funny. But yeah, I don't know. And you know, like I said, you know, I went to see Deadpool and Wolverine. Coming out of it, I was like, man, this was awesome. And then this happened, and I was like, ooh, fuck. Because Deadpool and Wolverine, again, while I expected it to rely heavily on, you know, cameos and like cheap fucking yays and things like that, I think Marvel might need to broaden their audience again and make movies for people that aren't diehard fans. I was going to call you a normie earlier. Again, not derogatory. I think Deadpool is the perfect character for you.
Yeah.
Because it's just fun and it like knows what it is and it like doesn't rely on a lot of stuff. Like, yeah, for sure. There's jokes that like you will get more if you're a comic book fan or an MCU fan or whatever. But like then there's other jokes that he just like he made fun of Marvel itself. He was like, yo, the multiverse sucks, guys. Like, let's finish this already. And I just think, I don't know. Seems like a lot of time they're making movies for the diehard fans, I think, that are like obsessively reading like rumors and theories and like all this stuff. Because in Deadpool, like there were moments in the movie you could tell that like the writers thought that there were going to be huge audience moments, right? Like the big reactions. And you could hear a fucking pin drop in my theater. And my theater was like not really packed. It was kind of empty, which I
remember you saying that.
I was surprised because it opened up to a lot of money. So I'm like, well, that's weird. There were times in the movie where I was like literally the only one clapping. And I was just like, what's going on here? Like, what do people not have seen these other movies?
Right.
And if you look at like the other evidence, there's evidence to support like we might just be like fan interest is gone for whatever reason. Maybe it's comic book fatigue or mid fatigue, or whatever you want to call it. Like people went to see this movie. There's a reason why. And it's not just, I mean, a lot of it has to do with the fact that Hugh Jackman's relatable as Wolverine. And again, this is more what worries me. I'm getting to a point. This Robert Downey Jr. technique is going to make them money. That's the fucking shitty thing about it.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Like, it's going to fill theaters. So when they see just the bottom line, they're going to think like, oh, let's just fucking do this. And then like the whole thing comes crumbling down. And that's why, again, I'm saying, is the MCU dead? I could see a world in where it is. Because Kevin Feige can only do so much. He only has so much say. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%.
And this stinks of executive decision making. Yeah. That's just my 2 cents. But I do want to know what everybody else thinks. So if you're listening or watching this, leave a comment and let us know, is the MCU dead? Please.
So I want to say, now I know Kevin Feige is the GOAT, right?
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah.
But maybe he just peaked with his run up to Endgame. Do we need someone else to step in and revitalize this thing? Like, it hasn't been great since then.
I don't think so. Because after Endgame, I think we got a lot of studio interference. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Because I just don't see a world where, like, listen, nobody's perfect, right? But I don't see a world where you make 22 films over the course of 10 years that are so fucking good.
Yeah.
To what there is now. Okay? That's like that'd be the most massive drop off of all time. Like, if it was just his doing. I don't think it is. I suck his dick a little bit too much probably, but like I do think he, like, when I hear him talk about the shit, he's passionate about it. He's been working for Marvel Entertainment, Marvel Studios, since the first X-Men movie in 2000. He's been there this whole time. He's worked on all the Raimi Spider-Man movies that you love. Like he's been in this for so long. He loves the stuff so much. I just cannot see. It would be like if Easy or me or like, oh, I'm sorry, Ed. I call him Easy privately. Easy E.
Easy E.
Now I got to explain it. His gamer tag for the longest time was EA. And no, it's his initials. And I started calling him Easy E, and then now I just call him Easy. So I slipped. But yeah, Ed, it'd be like if me or Ed or Dusty like made a comic book movie that just sucks. It wouldn't make any sense because we love the shit. We wouldn't make it bad. Like, you know what I mean? We might make it bad. I mean, but I don't think so.
Yeah. So if it is just the executives, then nothing is it's gonna continue to be bad because they're
I think it's
Just gonna keep chasing it.
Yeah, I think it's the stretched thin theory, right? Like he could only do so much. He could only oversee so much.
Yeah.
And even if he was overseeing everything, like you can't. It's too hard to quality control that, especially when you got your bosses being like, "We want 15 shows a year, and we want 5 movies a year, and we don't get like because the executives don't give.
You
a
have to
fuck.
make it all connect somehow.
Yeah, exactly. It's just too much.
Well, you don't have to, but they want it to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wish would have been after Endgame, they just let the shit breathe a little bit. They just, hey, we're gonna take a
Cook
break.
something up.
We're
like
gonna
actually plan out something. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna take a break. Here's a couple of shows and movies that tie up some loose ends after Endgame, like Spider-Man: No Way Home, like Guardians 3, like WandaVision. Get a couple little things, tie things up. But for the most part, we're not doing shit. Maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see in 10 years. Because imagine how much better it would have been with that type of planning, without the type of pressure to produce and to pump out. Think about that. This is a perfect example. This is a perfect example. But these are like $1 billion. It's a multi-billion-dollar corporation, right? But it's like content creators, right? How often do we hear about content creators who get burnt out, who fucking get depressed and all this stuff? They shut their channels down. They just disappear off the face of the earth because the pressure to keep up that output is just so much. Shroud has talked about it all the time. Like he's like, as big as I am, if you take like a week off, you hemorrhage subscribers.
That's
right?
the thing. They got to keep that. Yeah.
And so the more you pump out, the worse the quality gets. It's just impossible to keep up that level of quality when you're just focused on quantity, right? And so if you take that comparison to Disney, it's the same thing. And it's not just exclusive to Marvel, right? We see it with Star Wars too. We've talked about it all the time. It's like a Disney problem.
It's Disney Plus problem.
I
really.
can't imagine
it's Disney Plus.
Exactly. I can't imagine
Get
it's
rid of
Feige.
Disney Plus.
I gotta say, it's Disney. It's just the executives being like, "Hey, we want money, baby. We don't give a fuck
if
how
Disney
we get
Plus
it."
wasn't there, I wonder like if the pressure to have those Disney Plus subscribers wasn't there, it would be like totally different probably.
Hey, maybe Apple is setting a fucking dope precedent, being like, "Hey, fuck our streaming service. We're gonna like scale back." Maybe other streamers will be like, "Hey, maybe we are too."
Yeah, right.
But something tells me that's not gonna happen. Excuse me. So yeah, I don't know. That's my thoughts on it. I don't really have much news to talk about. Dusty's the newsman here, and he's not here, obviously, as you could tell. But it was Comic-Con this weekend. The biggest stories were Marvel related because they had like Hall H and stuff. I don't know. We'll just wait till next week to cover it. Just, other than the Robert Downey Jr. thing, it's like not much. We learned a little bit about straight to DVD Captain America: Brave New World. We learned a little bit about Fantastic Four, which Fantastic Four's got me fucked up too. I'm just like, apparently Galactus is the villain. How you gonna have a World Eater as your villain in like the first fucking movie out? You know what I mean?
That's pretty big. Yeah.
Galactus is a huge. He's a Thanos level villain. I don't know.
Yeah, that's nuts.
I don't know what they're doing.
They're chasing it. They're not taking that time.
Yeah.
They're trying to get the $1 billion opening weekend without the 10 years of
work. Yeah.
Build up. Yeah.
Is there anything that you wanted to talk about, Marvin?
No, I didn't really look at too much news, so I don't have anything.
There was one other really cool thing I saw, comic book related. It was DC. They finally revealed their like DC movie universe logo and the animation for it, and it's so good. It's basically old school Fleischer Superman, like the old version of Superman from the comic books, like old 1930s, 40s looking Superman. And he like breaks out of these chains, and then the logo flips, and it's the DC logo.
Oh wow, okay.
And it's so good because it's like it's fucking Superman. It's the house that Superman built. You know what I mean? DC. It's like, so they're honoring it properly, which I like.
That's cool. Yeah.
But all right, let's get into today's movie, folks. Once per month, as I said, Dusty and I take turns. We make Marvin watch something that he hasn't seen that we think he should have. And this month was my choice. This is now the 4th consecutive Make Marvin watch, I think, that Dusty's not here for. So we got to have a little chat with him about it. Yeah.
That can't be
I think
random.
So. No, he's fucking plotting.
Yeah.
But this movie is I chose this movie this month because I know Interstellar is your favorite, Marvin. And
Yes.
I don't, there's another reason why I picked this. I can't remember, but that was a big part of it. And I thought maybe, hey, maybe he would like this original Interstellar. And so can science and religion coexist? That's a fascinating question, Marvin.
Yes, sir.
And it's one that I have found myself in the middle of several times. I guess gun to my head, right? I'd say I identify as an atheist, though, and I don't make any secret of that. We all know that. Though I also think I would probably, if I really thought about it, I probably align perhaps equally with agnosticism. But this is what's explored here in Contact. And what better person to pose this question than perhaps the most brilliant science communicator of all time, who has played a large part in shaping my worldview, Marvin. You know him, Mr.
Carl.
Mr. Carl Sagan. And he has a famous quote that says, "Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence." And that is the binding thread, the glue that binds this story together. So again, we're talking about Contact. The movie's directed by Robert Zemeckis, but it's actually based on a book by Carl Sagan, and he co-wrote it with his wife, Anne Druin. I don't think they were married at the time. They might have gotten married after they wrote the book. I don't recall. But it was actually always intended on being a film, but there was some speed bumps in the development of it, so Carl ended up having it published as a book. But before we get into the movie, I do want to talk about Carl Sagan a little bit, because this movie just like bleeds Carl Saganisms. Yeah, it's just it's too, you can't not talk about him. But you know what's so great about him? He made complex scientific concepts accessible and exciting to the general public through his books, his lectures, and his famous TV series Cosmos, which is how I was introduced to him as a young lad. Cosmos was playing on like fucking, I don't know, PBS or something at some point, and ever since I've just been amazed. And there's a little bit more to me than this, but like once I discovered that, I was like, oh shit, this is my shit right here. But he has a really unique ability to blend like wonder and skepticism, and he makes science like both awe-inspiring and approachable. And I've shared a lot of his stuff with you, and all his work, including Contact, humanizes science by linking it to broader human concerns and philosophical questions. He has he's hugely skilled in like framing scientific inquiry as like a deeply human endeavor. That's like, it's filled with curiosity and a quest for understanding. And this is what made him an amazing communicator. It's not just like the blend of skepticism and wonder is really what this movie's about, right?
Yeah.
So a little bit more about his religious beliefs, because this is the central theme of the movie, is the line between religion and science. Can they coexist? And Carl Sagan was often identified as an agnostic rather than an atheist. He didn't claim belief in a traditional God or the supernatural, but he also he didn't assert the certainty that no such beings exist.
Right, because how could you?
Right. And he was known for his emphasis on scientific skepticism and the importance of empirical evidence. So he frequently expressed the view that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, like the quote, which mostly aligns with agnosticism, which is why I mentioned that. So his approach to questions about the existence of God or the supernatural was characterized by his focus on what can be known and demonstrated through science. Meaning, like, hey, if there's a scientific explanation for God, I'm all for it. I'm not opposed to it. But until I'm shown that evidence, I can't have an opinion on the matter. Not an opinion, but like I can't say definitively one way or the other.
Right.
Neil
basically what she says in her court hearing, or not court hearing, but whatever it was.
Yeah, exactly. Neil deGrasse Tyson has a similar thing where he points to aliens. He's like, if you look up in the sky and you see weird lights, it's not the right question. The right thing to do is not, I don't know what that is, therefore it's aliens. If you hear a strange noise behind you, I don't know what that noise was, therefore it's a ghost. Like, that's common thinking. And guys like Carl Sagan tried to communicate that that is not how the world is meant to be looked at. I hear a strange noise. I'm curious about it. I would like to learn more about it. Let me explore that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, like a lot of people quote Carl Sagan to like dunk on religion, which isn't really the right thing to do because he himself would not have done that. So here we are in Contact, and we have our main character, Dr. Ellie Arroway, played by Jodie Foster, and she's our main character. She's a scientist. She works for SETI, which Carl Sagan worked a lot with SETI, and SETI's organization is like primarily meant to discover life in the cosmos somewhere. And she's been kind of doing this her whole life. She believes strongly in it, and she's a skeptic, and she believes in evidence. She's a scientist. Yeah. And our other main character, Palmer Joss, played by Matthew McConaughey, he's the opposite spectrum. He is a religious, well, not religious is the wrong word. He is a spiritual man. He believes in God. He never really gives his opinion on like the institution of religion, but he does believe in God. And he explains to her at one point in the movie that, you know, he had this experience and he can't explain it. And that's really where they, I mean, it's the whole point of the whole movie because it comes back home around later on. But that's enough out of me, Marvin. What'd you think about this movie?
This movie was awesome. I mean, this is an instant classic for me. Definitely up there with Interstellar, like Arrival. Those are some of like my other favorite, sci-fi, whatever. I think, man, the flow of the movie was just like, it was just perfect, honestly. Like, they gave us like the backstory of Ellie. They give us like this very natural progression of them finding and deciphering the first messages like that they received. Mm-hmm. And we can go into each of these things, but like, I thought it was great. It was really good. And what you talked about, like presenting, because like space in of itself is like, it's crazy, but it's exhausting. It's crazy, but it's also just like a boring thing because it's not much happening. So for someone to be able to like show us that other side of like, there is like a lot of crazy things happening, and to kind of like you said, like just make it more accessible for like normal people. I think it's just awesome.
I don't know if boring is the right word. I don't know. I know you didn't mean boring, but like it's like learning math, right? It's hard to absorb and take in. Yeah. But he made it fun and interesting. And like I said, a large part of that was because he tied it to human experience. Yeah. You know, his famous pale blue dot that like goes all, it's like his most famous thing almost. And it really talks about how like, you know, it talks about like how precious like human life is, while also explaining we're not precious, we're not special. Like he takes that like he makes it so that we're special and not special at the same time, right? Yeah. Little things like that is like almost an impossible task, but he was able to do it. And that's why I say this movie really like bleeds Carl Sagan, because obviously he wrote it, but you know, it's just the two opposing views. And that was like his whole thing, right? Is, you know, I was talking a little bit about it before, but that like, you know, he always maintained a position of open-minded inquiry, right? And he always emphasized the limitations of human knowledge and the vastness of the unknown, as he says. Yeah. But he was always critical of dogmatic religious beliefs and the lack of evidence for supernatural claims. And he also acknowledged the emotional and cultural significance of religion for many people. As you've heard me say many times, it's like, listen, who am I to say what makes somebody, what helps people deal with the horrors of life? You know, like if you want to be religious because it brings you, like all my friends, a lot of my friends, they're Greek Orthodox, and they have, the Greek church is like a very close-knit community. And it's like less about like, for my friends, like my friends are my age, they don't really believe in God and stuff, but for them, it's community. And it's about like friendship and like, you know, my friend's not religious, but he wants to take his daughter to Greek school because that's what he did when he grew up. And that's where he met a lot of his friends. Right. So religion means a lot of different things for a lot of different people. And it's unfair to criticize people who are religious, to chalk them up as just like crazy kooks or fanatics and terrorists and all this other stuff, which is often what happens.
Yeah.
And every single one of these things is explored in this movie. And I think
specifically that point you just said, like, just like, oh, you know, they're crazy or they're delusional. When he asked her that question and kind of like ruined her chance at the first chance of being the one that gets sent in the machine. And he said that, and I think he said it because, like, how can someone that looks at us this way represent all of us? Like, you're going to like mislead us to all these, whatever these beings are, and they're going to look at us like, possibly like idiots or morons or whatever, right? And it's like, it's a big 95% of us are.
It's a big part of the story. How are we going to send you, a skeptic who doesn't believe in this shit, to represent our species where 95% of us believe? You're going to have us all
cooked and fucking.
Bro, I thought what you sent me was a real quote from the movie.
It is.
Is it?
It is.
I was waiting for it, but I didn't hear it.
It was earlier on. It happens earlier on.
That's funny.
Yeah.
In his book, The Demon Haunted World, Science as a Candle in the Dark, Sagan wrote about the importance of science and skepticism in understanding the world while advocating for tolerance and open-mindedness towards different perspectives. And so he advocates for science and, you know, has this skeptical approach to understanding the universe while also remaining open to the possibilities beyond current human knowledge, right? So that would make him more accurately described as an agnostic. And I guess myself too, but I'm not a scientist. So I'm not trained in, you know, the same way he is. So that's why I always just like, I'm just an atheist. Like I don't just, because atheism is just the lack of belief in a thing, right? Which I think is what I am. However, I am open to like, hey, if I'm presented with evidence, fine. So I don't know. I think they work kind of in tandem, but like, sometimes agnosticism is just used as an excuse to be like, I don't know, I don't want to talk about it. Oh, you know what I mean? Like I can't say one way or another. But yeah, I think this movie does a really great job of making a strong point for people on both sides of the argument, because both Matthew McConaughey's character and Jodie Foster's character, they're like both right. You know what I mean? In a way.
Yeah.
Because she's the person representing science, being like, no, like I only believe in evidence. And he's there being like, okay, I have faith. And his central point with her is like, basically that her scientific view of the world is also faith. And I've had this argument with Dusty before. I'm so upset he's not here to talk about this because we have had this exact conversation, because he says to me all the time, he's like, well, what you believe in science is faith in a sense. You have faith in the scientific process. And it's a hard point to argue.
Yeah.
As she finds out in the movie. Like, well, yeah, I do have faith. I have faith in the scientific process. I have faith in the systems and the mathematics and all these things that we've developed as a human species over the years to explain the universe.
Right.
Like, yeah, I guess I have faith that those are accurate. But I think where that argument breaks down, and the point that I always try to make, is that what's different about faith is that anybody who is a legitimate scientist and practicing the scientific perspective properly is that you have to be open to new information when it comes, right? That's where the faith argument breaks down, right? You know, because, you know, just as an example, like thousands of years ago, the science of the time told us that the Earth was the center of the universe, right? But it wasn't really science-based, so that's a bad argument, but I'm just going to use it.
Sure.
And then as we developed more information down the road, we started to realize that, like, oh, well, the Earth is not the center of all things. Like, the sun's the center of the solar system, and the sun is just one of billions and billions of stars, and then, like, you know, in one of billions and billions of galaxies. And slowly but surely, our perspective expanded and broadened. So you have to, so science, while yes, I get the faith thing, science relies on being open to new information.
So I think, to speak on that, I wouldn't call that having faith in the science. I think it's just more you trust the scientific process because it's something that could be like proven and like the scientific process is literally like steps to like all not prove it, but like
Yeah.
I don't know the word for that, but I wouldn't call that faith because it's something that could be something that could be tested and like proven essentially.
Well, what you said is not wrong.
And it's been
So the scientific process is such that like it sets out to disprove itself.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So the way it works is like somebody presents a theory, let's say Einstein and his fucking theory of relativity, right?
Yeah.
It's only when a theory cannot be disproved that it's given credence.
Right.
So like that's the scientific method, and that's why it's so reliable, is because it sets out to disprove things, and only when it can't is that thing taken as fact. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it goes both ways. Like in regards to religion, it's like I don't believe now, but I could.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the same thing when you're trying to prove a theory or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like we believe we trust the theory of like gravity. It's like I believe now, but I couldn't if it was proven to be different, right? It's like the same thing. It's like you just have to be open,
So this is actually presented in a really interesting way in the movie, because, you know, again, Matthew McConaughey explains his belief in God is because of this profound experience that he has. When he first meets Ellie, he explains that like he had this experience, he cannot explain it, he just knows it was God. It was like a profound thing for him. And I forget exactly what she says, but she's like, I believe that you had this experience, and I believe that you felt these things. But where our views break off is that you're saying you're making the claim that it's God, and I'm just saying you had the experience. And I've had this conversation before with people. I know some people in my life that are into like more spiritual aspects of things, like they believe in tarot cards. I don't know if that's spiritual, but they believe in like that sort of thing. And somebody told me once like that they had a particular dream that ended up coming true. And I was like, I don't shame those people, or I don't make fun of it or anything like that. And they were like, "Oh, you don't believe me?" And I was like, "No, I believe you think you had this happen, but I'm not necessarily sure that that's exactly what happened." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is the same, and this is what Ellie says to Palmer. But what's super interesting is that by the end of the movie, when it comes full circle and she has her experience and she possibly goes through the wormhole and like all this stuff without proof, she is in the same exact position that Palmer was in.
Yep, 100%.
Is that she had this experience, it was very real to her, but she has no way to prove it. And it's just such a brilliant thing, like the way this story comes together like that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just a really, really, really well done story to like really drive that message home, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Like a lot of things they did, like giving us little insight into how these scientists function like on a day-to-day basis, and how they determine like, oh, if a sound has been accounted for already. Like these are the type of things that I would say are like boring to normal people, but they made it seem like exciting and super interesting in this.
So,
and go ahead.
I was going to say SETI is actually a real organization. It stands for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And Carl Sagan worked with them quite a bit. In fact, one of their they have like a thing. It's called the Carl Sagan Institute or something like that. Like he contributed a lot to them. But yeah, go ahead. What were you continuing to say?
No, yeah, that's. I was just gonna say, like, I imagine this type of job to be like a grind, like a day in, day out type of thing. Like, there's probably like, you know, like a couple exciting moments. So that's
Now, the science and the spiritualism aside, I think this is a really accurate portrayal of like what would actually happen if we made contact. Similar to this, you would have governments all getting involved. It would be super politicized. The talking heads would be all over TV. Social media would be fucking freaking out about it. The
array site turning into the gathering, that would probably happen. That was actually like a pretty like hype and exciting moment for me in the movie. Like it was like, oh, this is nice.
Well, I just think it would be, I think this is a really accurate portrayal of what would happen. Obviously, I can't know because it hasn't happened, but like, what's interesting to me about this movie and the brilliance of Carl Sagan for writing it is that this came out in 1997.
97.
And the book was written in the 80s. Look at what life was like that long ago. Was this 30 years ago now? 1997, 2007, 2017. It's like over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? Did I just do the math right?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's 2024.
Yeah, it's over 20 years ago. It's almost 30 years. Right?
Mhm.
And even back then, we as a society functioned the same way we do now.
Same.
Except because of the advent of social media and how technology and the internet has been just, it's such a profound part of our everyday life now that mentality has just escalated and gotten worse. Because the behavioral
100%.
patterns in this movie you see every day with everything.
Yeah.
People react the way they did to Contact to fucking Marvel movies now.
Right.
Right? Like, no, I'm being dead
Yeah.
serious. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, and that's another thing that's amazing about Carl Sagan is that he was so spot on about like where we would be today. He's talked about it many times, like in a lot of different ways. Like he just knew. And yeah, I just find that amazing. So yeah, I don't know, from watching this movie 30 years after it was made, I think just adds this whole extra layer of brilliance to it that was obviously by accident a little bit. But yeah, I think it's just a really accurate portrayal of what would happen and like how people would be like battling over it and like all this crazy shit.
Yeah.
Now, Robert Zemeckis has said that the movie was meant to be a little ambiguous and that you're meant to question whether or not she actually had this experience.
Right.
I'm curious, what do you think? Do you lean more so on the side of faith or do you lean more so on the side of skepticism? Because this is why the movie is so brilliant, or the story is so brilliant, is because if you listen to the movie, right?
Yeah.
If you're a skeptic, truly, the way Carl Sagan is, the way she is in the movie, you shouldn't believe her.
Yeah. Well,
But me,
I don't
as
know
a
if that's
person,
true.
I want to believe, like Mulder.
I want to believe too. I believe because of the 18 hours of static
Yeah,
recording.
they leave you with that
can't
little
be
bit.
explained, right?
Let me tell you something. The tears that I have when that last scene, for so many reasons, obviously because she's seeing her dad again. It's not really her dad.
Oh,
it's
man.
it's just their way of
That
relating
was
to her.
so good. I loved how the aliens were so advanced. They present themselves as her father that spoke her language. But like it's like a level of like comfort.
Yep.
Like we're not even gonna try to like show you our technology. Like you can't even understand the tech we have, obviously.
We just want to let you know we're here.
We're gonna give you virtual reality. Like
yeah.
you humans are still in the Stone Age compared to us, basically.
Small adjustments or whatever he says. Small movements. Is that what it was?
Small steps, little steps.
Well, he was referring to the dial on the radio from the beginning. He said small. I forget what he says.
I see.
But yeah, and that's interesting too. So there's another brilliant thing about this movie or Carl Sagan, because he wrote it.
Yeah.
In most stories in pop culture dealing with aliens, the aliens are almost always hostile. Right?
Right. Yeah.
And it goes to show you how shitty I think the human species is, because when dealing with the unknown, it's our natural tendency to imprint our own familiarities onto a thing. Right? Like, so God, we say, God made man in his image. Like, what? Like, why would the fuck would he do that? So of course our God looks like us. Carl Sagan has more famous quotes. Of course the human God looks like us. And if apes had a God, he would look like an ape. And if giraffes had a God, he would look like a giraffe. And horses look like a horse.
Yep.
And in alien stories, the aliens just have to be hostile. But that's just telling to me, because the hostility is just natural. That just means that hostility is the natural state of man, because we're imprinting our own fucking shit onto
them.
Yeah. Like, what? And why would I don't know if I can credit this to Carl Sagan, but somebody, I think it might be Neil deGrasse Tyson. He always says like, or I can't remember who it is. It's like when dealing with aliens, because it's actually part of the argument of like, have we been visited by aliens before? A lot of people, a lot of skeptics would say no, because the technology to get across these vast distances is unknown to us. And part of what we're talking about is we can't just say we know something that we don't know. Okay? We don't know of any known technology that could bring you to like light years across the universe or galaxy to get here. So of course we can't think we've been visited, because there's no evidence to suggest that there's like civilizations locally.
Right.
But anyhow, one of the arguments against visitation is like, if they're that advanced that they could travel these vast distances in the blink of an eye, why would they want to bother with us? It would be like us looking down at an anthill and wanting to like explore the anthill. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So,
right.
You know, I think that's like an interesting thing as well. Just
hold on one sec.
You good?
No, we're good.
You being home invaded?
Someone was knocking. I was like,
yeah, I just think it's interesting that like, oh, it's always like aliens are hostile. Like, why would they be hostile? They would have no reason to fucking. And she says this in the movie. She's like what? Like, what reason would they have to fuck with us? You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think the way they presented it in this is like they just stumbled across our stuff. They're responding.
Well,
they're trying to show us like there's all these many others, whatever, right?
Well, the way I take it is it's like it's letting you, it's a stepping stone. It's like, hey, you're not alone.
That's it. That's all you need to know right now.
There's everybody. There's other things out there. Use that information accordingly.
Yeah.
And that's really, I would say, throughout his life, the central message that Carl Sagan always wanted to convey is that, like, we are small and insignificant, you know?
Yeah.
But we're at the same time, we
still matter.
Yeah, we still matter.
We matter, but we don't matter.
Yeah, but the way the movie visualizes like a lot of the stuff from the book is great. And that last bit of scene where she's there, wherever she is it makes me cry because it's beautiful. And she says like, oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. In fact,
they should have sent a poet.
They should have sent a poet.
That was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they're arguing about who to send. Like, should we send a scientist? Or she's like, we should have sent a poet. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. She's like, I had no idea like how beautiful it would be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think just everything.
What did you think of when she was in the wormhole? Like when she became like young again? Was that just like something just to do with time or something?
Yeah, that would say time and relativity, shit that they explore
that was pretty
deeply in Interstellar, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's funny because you had sent me that Interstellar thing the other day, that theory about like he was dead. Yeah. And this is like his transition. I was like so angry about it.
I thought that. So I actually thought she was dying. I was like, oh God, she's dying. When she got to the artificial, the presentation of the alien, I was like, oh, this is this heaven? Like she's dead.
Listen,
now she's seeing her.
That's part of the story because because listen, the movie works no matter what side of the spectrum you're on, right? I'm more of on the skeptic side, so I see like the scientific parts of it. I think she did go visit this place in a wormhole and all this stuff. But if you're on the other side of the aisle, the Matthew McConaughey side, you're like, oh, there was like a mechanical failure. She came close to death and she like went to heaven for a second.
Yeah.
So
100%.
The movie just does such a good job of making it be plausible on both sides. The actors in this movie were great, every single one of them. I forgot actually Matthew McConaughey was in this, so that was kind of funny. He always plays the same kind of stoic like guy.
It's so funny. Real quick, sorry, real quick with Matthew McConaughey. I was like, I had like a Biden moment at the beginning.
Yeah,
when she met the blind guy, and then she met Matthew McConaughey. I was like, isn't this guy blind?
Oh.
Two different people.
Yeah.
But they had the same hairstyle. Like, I was like really like Bidening out for a second.
That was Kent, the blind guy.
Yeah.
I think everybody's great in this movie. Tom Skerritt, he played David Drumlin, the guy who was like kind of a prick to her the whole time.
He was a fucking twat.
Yep.
Dude tried to shut all the research down, and then when it turns out that
Yeah.
is really go time, he's like, oh yeah, I want to go.
Yep, of course.
I'm not even mad he died.
Like, personal
It is what it
interests
is.
will always take over. It is what it is. There's some interesting little controversies with this movie, though. So the Bill Clinton stuff, the footage of him is actually real footage.
Oh wow!
Because in 1984, a meteorite thought to be from Mars was found in Antarctica, and 12 years later, an article by NASA was published, and it proposed that the meteorite might contain evidence for microscopic fossils of Martian bacteria.
Wow.
So the announcement made headlines around the world, and the following day, in August of 1996, during a press conference about the news, the president, Bill Clinton, made remarks that were in places like generic enough that they could allow fragments of it to be put in the movie to make it seem like he was talking about contact. So that was an issue, and that I think the White House since then has been like, yeah, we're not going to allow speeches to be used in films anymore. Same thing for CNN because of Larry King footage and shit like that, and Bernard Shaw. A lot of that stuff was just footage that happened in real life that they pulled for the movie just to make it kind of work.
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of neat little info, but yeah, everything about this movie is great. I think it's really awesome. It conveys the themes really well for both sides, and yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's one of my
going
favorites.
back to the characters. At first, I wasn't sure how I felt about the Lex Luthor motherfucker. What was his name? It starts Haddon.
Haddon, yeah. SR Haddon.
I was like, I don't like this, and then I just realized he wasn't like a super villain or anything.
No, he's just a rich guy.
I was just kind of okay with it after that.
Yeah, he's just kind of a rich guy, doing rich people shit, It
was crazy how the stakes actually just kept getting more and more intense when you thought it couldn't really get more intense.
Yeah.
That was really well done.
There's a lot of layers to the movie too. It's again, I can't stress enough, perfect job of blending both sides of this argument, because a lot of her experience in that pod could be related to her childhood experience and the trauma of losing her dad when she was young,
right.
And all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I argue a lot where we are the sum of our experiences. It's being proven more and more every single day, so much so that there's research that suggests that a simple coin flip choice can be predicted in advance. If I told you to flip a coin, research suggests I could accurately predict what you're going to choose most of the time, and that's because we are a product of our experiences. It's actually something that a lot of skeptics argue is a argument against the existence of God, because if you're religious, one of the things that you believe is that God gave us free will. Well, the scientific argument now is that you don't have free will because your experiences dictate what you'll do in certain situations.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing.
I mean, I think, that's weird. That's like a semantics thing then, isn't it? Because free will is what led you to make the decisions in the first place.
No, that's the argument, that it was not free will, that you are not free to make those decisions, that your experiences alone is what leads you to make these decisions.
I see.
We also are starting to learn more about the human mind, and we know that our memories may not be as accurate as we think. There's some research to suggest that we remember things inaccurately. We think something happened that didn't, or vice versa. So there's a lot of stuff that's up in the air about us as people. So, it's just, this is a lot of interesting stuff. And the movie does a really great job of conveying these things. And the fact that it came out 30 years ago is, I think, amazing. And that's what makes Carl Sagan so amazing.
Yeah.
As an
The only thing that
educator.
wasn't amazing was that explosion. That shit was terrible. But I get that it was 97. So
Hey,
it is what it is.
Come on, Marvin. You've watched worse.
The physics looked pretty real though. The actual collapsing and stuff.
Oh, the wormhole stuff was good.
But the wormhole stuff was great.
Yeah. So anything else you want to say about this movie?
Just again, the way that they found and deciphered the messages, kind of piece by piece, oh, I found this, and the blind guy was like, oh, I changed the frequency and I actually found this. Plug it into the TV. I got this. And there's like the static is actually like all these files, and it was awesome.
Well, so talking about controversies and stuff, so NASA had a little bit of an issue with the fact that they give her the cyanide pill.
Oh,
and
that was fake news.
Well,
I'm assuming.
Well,
we don't know.
So Gerald Griffin, the film's NASA advisor, insisted that NASA has never given any astronaut a cyanide pill just in case. And that if an astronaut truly wished to commit suicide in space, they would have all they have to do is cut their oxygen supply. However, Carl Sagan himself insisted that NASA did indeed give out cyanide pills, and they did it for every mission an astronaut has ever flown. Zemeckis said that, the director, said that because of these two radically different ideas, the truth is unknown, but he left the suicide pill scene in the movie because it seemed more suspenseful that way. And then also SETI reviewed the movie in 2011, and they said they gave a side-by-side chart of a few relevant details from the film and how they differed from reality. One example being that despite having 27 radio telescopes, the VLA is actually smaller and less sensitive than the Arecibo Observatory, making Arecibo a better location for SETI work. And they just said it's kind of like less photogenic than the array of satellites, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But despite these small inconsistencies, they maintain that Contact is indescribably more accurate in its depiction of SETI than any Hollywood film in history. So so the stuff that you're describing, the little tweaks and the zeroing in on frequencies and stuff, that's apparently very, very accurate to how it would go down in real life.
Yeah. Dang, I had another thought, but I can't
find it.
It was a good one too.
Get it back.
Yeah.
Can't find it?
I can't find it.
All right. It's all right, buddy.
I'll think of it later.
But yeah, so I don't know. It is honestly like a perfect movie for me. It's a once a year watch. It has a 7.5 on IMDb. I got to bump it. I give it a 10.
It's a 10.
It is what
10,
it is.
Easiest 10 of my life.
Easiest 10 of my life. Would you watch it again?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, I do know what I was going to say.
Let's go.
I got it back. So, they were making all these preparations about like, we're not going to send her up there with no safety or no food or no whatever. Yeah. And it's like, this other whatever species was so advanced that they're like, it's not even a factor. Like, it was fucking, well, it wasn't even like half a second or something it was like 1 second.
It was something like that, yeah.
It was like 1 second that was actually like 18 hours or whatever. It's like just insane.
Or was
it? Or was it? Yeah. I thought that was cool though. It's like they just, us as humans have to prepare for all these things that this other species is not even a factor for them.
Not even a factor. How about the goat Angela Bassett being in this movie?
Oh, that was awesome. I love her.
She's so great.
She's been around so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, all right. So 10s for the both of us. We gotta touch base with Dusty and see what his rating was. But yeah. I mean, that's really the final message of the film, and the final message that Sagan has tried to convey through his entire life is that, humans are small. We're a microscopic piece of this vast cosmic tapestry, and that life is special and rare, and it's worth preserving and cherishing, as he said, preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. I
always think about that quote, maybe it's a quote or something you told me about. When the Voyager, when it turns around and it's like, take that picture. Mm-hmm. You got to get that.
Yeah.
And then
because it shows the Earth as a single pixel. Like
crazy.
And it's
the same way we look at stars is the way it looked. Which is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, there's one really great quote of his that I love. It's a little, I don't know if it's lesser known, but it's from Cosmos. And there's two scenes in the movie that rely heavily on it. It's when the alien picks up the sand. And then she does it at the end of the movie. And the quote, I might get choked up. I might do it. It's Carl saying, those worlds in space are as countless as all the grains of sand on all the beaches of the Earth. Each of those worlds is as real as ours. And It's just, yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy. That's like Men in Black with the fucking marble.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It's funny enough, you mentioned Men in Black. This movie was released alongside Men in Black.
Damn. That's crazy.
In 97. It actually opened second to Men in Black in terms of money. Came in second.
Wow.
It was released in the United States and Canada.
I get why, though. But
yeah. It earned $20.5 million in its opening weekend, and Men in Black grossed, I don't know how much Men in Black grossed, but it ranked second on opening weekend.
Second, yeah.
So interesting you mentioned that. Isn't that weird how oftentimes movies come out like they're very similar themed?
Yeah, that is weird.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie's got it all. Whether you are a skeptic like me or you are on a more spiritual perspective, it doesn't matter. And that's why Carl Sagan was great, because he allowed room for multiple perspectives. I hate when people quote Carl Sagan in an effort to like own religious people or own fucking somebody who believes in like maybe things that you don't agree with, because
it's like these fucking crazy right-leaning motherfuckers quoted Martin Luther King. Like,
yeah, because he would never do that. Like he himself would never do that. And if you're trying to honor the guy, you're not doing him justice, because he's the last person that would treat people that way. So, love Mr. Carl Sagan. Love Contact. You should read it, Marvin. You like to read these days. It's a great book.
I didn't know it was based on a book. But I do want.
Should read all his books. I mean, The Demon Haunted World is unbelievable. One of the best books I've ever read, probably.
The Demon Haunted World?
Yep.
Huh.
Science as a Candle in the Dark. That one, that's great. It's a great read.
I'll check it out for sure.
It's basically about this. It's about like the scientific method and skeptical thinking, and like it deals with like pseudoscience and superstition and things like that, and how those things get in the way of sort of progress a lot of the time. But yeah, so that's gonna do it for us, folks. Have you seen Contact? If you haven't, you definitely should check it out. If you have seen it, leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think about the movie. I would love to hear your thoughts and ideas. I want to talk to some fellow Carl Saganites. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure. I would love for them to come out of the woodwork and leave some comments for sure.
You know what else, Marvin? I would love it if people would subscribe to the channel, because we are dangerously close to 700 subscribers. So if you like the content, help us out. Hit the sub button. It's free. It helps us out. So just do it. You know what I'm saying?
Do it. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And we're here once a week, usually with these episodes. We have a lot of content. You can check it all out on our website, harshlanguage.tv. And we will catch you next week. Thank you for hanging out with us.
See ya.